Hello, my friends. Tonight I want to talk to you about arguments. I believe that the world has too many disagreements, but not enough arguments. And I will advocate tonight that what would make society better and be beneficial to mankind would be having more good arguments. Now, you did hear me right. Here we are, we always spout shalom, peace, and to be politically correct, and we try not to offend. And I'm saying that what the world needs and what society would benefit from is a good argument. And the answer is yes. But before you turn me off, please hear me out. First, let me explain what a good argument means. You know, I met a friend who was congested. He looked miserable, had no energy. And I said, Bob, what's going on? He says, oh, I think I caught a good cold. A good cold? I don't know about a good cold. I've never heard about a cold that's good. If something saps your energy, I don't think that's necessarily very good. But a good argument is very different. You know, after a good argument, you come back, you're flushed, you're excited, you're motivated. Yeah, arguments can be good, but there are certain prerequisites. First of all, how do you define an argument? How does that differ than a disagreement? Well, arguments essentially means a position based on a certain line of reasoning, using the mind. So for example, if you would be in a court of law and the prosecutor or the defense lawyer would offer some type of a claim, and the opposing view might say, Your Honor, I just don't follow his argument. In other words, there's a way of thinking, and to me, that way of thinking is incorrect. A good argument means that two people have views based on a certain way of thinking and perceiving. Each one of them is capable of sharing their views, explaining their reasoning, and the other one who's listening to this responds accordingly. You try to open up your computer and it crashes. Your car doesn't start. Tell me something, do you argue with the computer? Do you argue with your car? Of course not. There's no one to argue with. If the computer was capable of starting, it would. If the car was capable of starting, it would. You could be upset, you could be frustrated, but it's not an argument. For that matter, even animals. I mean, you might want to try to understand your pet. You might want to understand why, especially if it's acting strangely. Is it hungry? Is it hot? Is it upset? But would you argue with a pet? I mean, I've never seen anyone argue with a donkey. Even children. Children are human beings, and young children are full of life. And here it is, it's coming time for bedtime. You say to your 6-year-old, it's time to go to bed. And the kid says, no, I don't want, I have so many things I have to do. And gently but firmly you say, no, now it's the time for bed. We have 10 minutes. We could choose to fill it. But when the timer is heard, you must begin the bedtime ritual. Are you going to argue with your child? Do you really believe a 6-year-old has a line of reasoning that could convey to you why staying up late is more valuable for his emotional and physical health than going to sleep at time? On time? Okay. So clearly an argument is not of one-sided. An argument is a position based on, and then for the pursuit of truth. I would like to hear your line of reasoning. And perhaps we could come to an accommodation. Perhaps we could come to a clarification. It's amazing that our Holy Talmud, which is really the lifeblood of the Jewish people, is filled with arguments. Rabbi Akiva said this. Rabbi Yishmael said this. Hillel said this. No, Shammai disagrees vehemently. We have page after page after page where the most learned and sacred rabbis debate with one another and argue with one another. What are they looking for? They're looking for truth. How do they get to the truth? They use their God-given vision and wisdom to get there. So one rabbi says, this is my argument. This is what I believe God wants us to do. And the other one says, well, based on my understanding and my background and my education, I believe this is the way God wants us to act. And they actually clash. Interesting enough, even after we follow one over the other, and there's a consensus that this great rabbi's opinion is to be followed, the other rabbi who was not accepted as the final authority, he still is respected. We still study his view, because by studying his view, we're getting another sense of understanding, and we get a clarity of what we really want to reach to. So what's a good argument? A good argument is where you leave this discussion and you leave clearer in the understanding of what you truly feel to be important. You know, as a happily married couple, I could speak, I believe, on behalf of my wife as well. But when I find it suspicious when I would meet another couple who said, oh, we never argue about anything. And I'm trying to think, you never argue? That means two people from two different backgrounds, two different genders, two different sets of families, two different communities, coming from two different environments, you think exactly alike? And not only do you think exactly alike, but you're willing to tolerate someone else's position? I don't know, something doesn't sound right to me. You can have good arguments and at the same time still respect the position of the other. More importantly, respect the individual. When two people meet and they start their discussion as following, you know, this is my opinion, that's your opinion, why don't we agree to disagree? I think that's very civil. I think that's very proper. I also think that the message is what we are discussing is either not so important, and therefore it does not bother me that you have your opinion and your position, or alternatively, it is very important, but I do not care enough about you, and therefore I could live perfectly well that you are living in error. So for example, if your neighbor's child comes over to you and says, you know, I'm thinking of dropping out of high school, and you might try to explain to the child, well, I don't think it's a good idea, I think you need higher education, what will your dad say, so on and so forth. And if the kid says, yeah, I know all about that, but I'm an adult, and I'm going to make that decision, I'm a senior, and I had enough of school, I'm taking off. So you could agree to disagree. Now try that with your own child. Dad, I'm quitting school. Why? Because I'm an adult and I've thought this through. And it seems to me that I don't need geometry and I don't need a degree. And besides, I'm too young to waste my time in four walls. Are you going to agree to disagree? No, you're going to have an argument. Why? Because you care about your kid. And you're passionate about his growth. And you are convinced, based on your reasoning and experience, that he's making the worst decision in his life. You're not going to agree to disagree. You're going to argue. Say, 1 second, you might lose your kid. No. Because you love your child. Because every good argument needs two requirements. The first thing of an argument is always respect the individual and argue against the opinion. So you might say your opinion is wrong, but I still respect you as an individual. The second thing, of course, is it worth arguing about? Yes, I think you could agree to disagree about chocolate versus vanilla. I might even go so far as to say you could disagree about your choice of teams. But I think you should argue about education. I think you should argue about charity. I think you should argue about allegiance to Israel. I think these are important subjects. And I think you want to get a position that's clear by you. And if it is truth, you want to share that with your partner and spouse. So, where does this leave us? What this leaves us is that arguments are beneficial. A good argument is fantastic. And even a good argument has to sometimes end. And that's how I would like to conclude as well. The Jewish people have an ongoing argument with the Almighty. We say to God like this: God, you are compassionate. You are wise. You are merciful. You are everything. You are our life. So why don't you bring the Mashiach? So why is life so difficult? You love us. We know you love us. So why can't we feel that love? And we argue with God. And God says to the Jewish people, He says, you know, you're the best people. You're the best nation. Since the time that you accepted my Torah some 3,300 years ago, you've been loyal and dedicated to me. I love and appreciate each and every one of you more than a human being can imagine. But why can't you grow? Why are you stagnating? Why don't you truly express your greatness? And we're both right. We know that God is good, and we want Mashiach to come now. He knows that the Jewish people love Him, but He demands more. Enough argument. It's been a good argument. It's time now for a resolution. The resolution is, we're both right. But you start first. Bring us the Mashiach, and then, without a doubt, you will see the goodness that you implanted in us actually sprout and bring forth. I wish you all a good week, good arguments, and a very happy and a speedy resolution.